Hi, my name is Gary Land. I'm a professional photographer, shoot mostly advertising-oriented photography. My studio is in Quincy, Massachusetts. I live in Scituate, Massachusetts, which is on the South Shore. My style of photography is hyper-real mixed with more reportage, kind of taking that, the imagery that, is normally shot from the hip and mixing it with a little bit more polished lighting, if you will. It was funny, the way I used to expose or make it a proper exposure was I used to use the back of my hand as a, obviously it's not gray, but it was the closest thing to it when you're shooting in an all-white environment like that. And my exposures were pretty decent. But I tell you what a difference when I did use my first light meter. It just changed the game for sure. Especially, honestly, for film, it was huge. I mean, when it started getting more critical, when you're shooting much more sophisticated subjects and people, especially celebrities with limited time, you wanted to make sure that exposure was right on. So when you took that first picture, you were really close. And then, even to this day, I mean, we have the L758DR digital master, and that's got, that's basically the top of the line, and we use that thing religiously. It's actually mandatory that each one of my assistants carry one. When digital photography first erupted, I think light meters were tossed aside for a little bit because they felt like, oh, I'm seeing what I'm getting, I'm happy with it, I can just make the adjustments and then I'll see it live on the monitor. Yeah, that's the lazy man's way to do it, and a histogram is great, but I don't really trust that. I'd rather trust something that is built specifically for measuring light. You're only as good as the tools that you have to work with. So if there's a tool that's out there that's going to give me the most accurate measurement, that's going to make my photos be, that much better, have that retoucher or that person look at it and go, wow, this file's got every bit of information that I can possibly hope for. Well, you know what? Yeah, you can do that without a light meter, but would you rather do it with a light meter and get it, and get that, proper exposure, 3 times as fast as you would? It's one of those things that I call a must-have. It's just as a must-have as having a normal lens on your camera. You know what I mean? Like, you got to have it. I do all my own posts, so it's like the double-edged sword. There's a lot of times I'm shooting something. Oh, what about this? What about that? Oh, don't worry about it. I'll take care of it in post. And then the next thing you know, you've said that 10 times already. So it's your 10 things you have to fix in post. The one thing I will never fix, or I don't like to do, is mess around with lighting in post. We might make things darker or make things a little bit lighter, or bring the highlights out a little bit more. But again, you have to start out with a great exposed image, in order to tailor that. Like if you have an image that's too dark, you bringing it back is impossible. If you have an image that's too light, making it dark is impossible. So you do have to have a proper exposure. You have to have detail in the shadow areas. You have to have detail in the highlights. I think of the histogram as a backup to a light meter. It's just, you get the great exposure, you look at your histogram, you're like, yep, all right, that's great. I would say the first 5 years of me shooting was just, my friends, skateboarding, and surfing. And it was more available light, not using any strobes, just, what you see is what you get. And then that style, I took that, moved to the resorts of northern Vermont, and started taking snowboarding photographs, right when snowboarding was first hitting in the early 90s, like 91, 92. Became friends with Jake Burton, some of his crew, and started taking photographs of them. And again, that was, a little bit more sophisticated cameras, but still using film and still using available light. So my style has changed a lot, since then. I've learned a lot. I've gotten really great at lighting. It went from like no production to a lot of production. So the hyper-real thing, it's taking reality and putting a twist on it. And that twist is done with lighting, it's done with post-production, it's done with subject matter. So that's what hyper-real is to me. I've kind of been asked several times to shoot very important people in not-so-important locations. For instance, a celebrity that has only 10 minutes and the availability is in a hotel room, but yet they want the image to be in some background, it could be a location, a cityscape, an urban setting, a ballroom, whatever. So it all started with that, where I had to shoot, this person on a white seamless, and then also have in mind the background that I'm going to use, and I have to know that the lighting for the subject is going to match that of the background. And when it's all put together, when you shoot, when you focus in for your subjects, you're actually focusing for the subject, and we also focus for the background. So when you put the two together, it has this hyper-real kind of three-dimensional look. I talk to clients, art directors, and they're like, okay, Gary, what do you want to do first? Do you want to shoot the subject first, or do you want to shoot the background first? And I'm like, you know what? Honestly, it doesn't even matter. As long as I'm, if I shoot the person and I have the light, just where I want it, I know that I have to actually take that same light and utilize that on the background. Having the light meters that are out there today, I think Sekonic makes the best, obviously, but you need to have that tool to get the proper exposure. So I can't even tell you what it's like to not use it anymore, just because I would be scared to even do a shoot without one, because it's just been such a big part of what we do. If someone says, hey, what's your niche? I wouldn't say I have a niche. My niche is taking photos and just trying to be true to myself and photographing those things that mean a lot to me. I take photography lightly, and I mean that seriously. People always say, you have such a, successful career. It's a career. To me, it's a lifestyle. When I speak at different schools and different, around different people, and I always tell them, I'm like, this is something that it's not a job to me. It's just the lifestyle that I make money at. And if the money drains out, I'll still be doing it. As long as you like it yourself, you stay true to yourself and take photos of things that you like, then I think you're going to be all set. And that's just my philosophy. Right now, I'm working on a big, huge Adidas World Cup soccer campaign and doing a lot of Coca-Cola advertising. And, everything's different. We got action. We have, lifestyle. Tomorrow, I'm actually have a photo shoot in the studio with some 1920s, the Roaring 20s flappers, a couple of women that we have all dressed up in 1920s garb. And, it's always something different. And as long as you can mix it up, have fun, every shoot you should have fun on, regardless if it's shooting products, shooting people, shooting environments. Just have fun, experiment, take a lot of photos. And, this is the lifestyle. You're a photographer for life. It's not something, it's like a job, and then you go and do something else. I think once you're a photographer, you're always a photographer.